Yeah,
Four
four
different
different
private
private
equity
equity firms,
firms.
three exits, four different private equity firms. Yes. We're going to move the business forward together, but I didn't bring you on here with your area of expertise to tell you how to do it. I wouldn't need you if that was the case.
Welcome back to the Raw Selection Private Equity Podcast. Super excited about today's guest. Joining us today is Jeffrey Stark, an operating partner, chairman and board member, previously multiple private equity-backed exits as a chief executive, 5+ private equity-backed exits. He's grown companies from tens of millions to hundreds of millions. His last gig as a chief executive, he took a business to an exit in 1 year and 1 week, and he's recently just completed his first exit as a chairman and operating partner. Huge amounts of value coming in here from a really proven executive, giving some really clear fundamentals on growing organizations. If you're a private equity investor, one to listen to on supporting your portfolio companies. If you're a private equity backed executive, one to listen to for the fundamentals of a proven private equity leader. So without further ado, let's dive in. This one is an absolute belter. So Jeff, can you share us an insight into your journey, please?
Well, my journey has really been a long, winding path, to be honest with you. I took it upon myself to look for opportunities and search for things that I wanted to do, that I thought I could provide value and skill set. And, was in corporate America for 15 years and then realized that I think I can do more in the private equity space and start talking to people and trying to find that first opportunity where I could lead a business in the private equity space and really get out of corporate America. And then once I got into the private equity space, it's been the same thing. Find opportunities, create your own path, and work hard to deliver, above expectations on results, so that you can create your own path. And I don't have somebody telling me what I can or I can't do. And that's really been my focus my entire work life is, thinking about where do you want to go, putting the plan together, and then working really hard to execute against that plan. And I think I had a great run in doing those things.
We are certainly going to dive into a little bit of that run, because I know we won't get through everything. We'd be here for an incredibly long time, but let's dive into a little of that run. Before we do, what's one mistake that you see either private equity firms or portfolio companies making, and what would you suggest to correct?
Well, the one thing that I always ask for as a CEO of a private equity backed business was to have an outside independent board member, somebody like me, that I could talk to about things that didn't run back to the PE firm on a day in and day out basis. And I wanted them for people that had certain skill sets that maybe where I needed some support or the company needed some support. So I always wanted to find that right person. And through all of my ventures, I've had really good outside board members who were mentors and helped me navigate areas that I didn't have a lot of exposure or responsibility for prior to getting into a business. Somebody could ask questions to and not feel like, you're asking the dumb questions. Because you're trying to figure it out and they've had some experience in it. So that for me was really important. And when I would talk to the PE guys, that's what I would ask them for. Do you mind if we have an independent outside board member? And they could pick them. I didn't really matter. I was looking for anybody I knew, but I wanted somebody that brought something to the table that I didn't have that could be really helpful to me in the business.
What's some of the questions that you, and even the stupid ones if we can, what are some of the questions that you were asking that board member and you were leveraging them for?
So when I got involved in private equity, my background was in finance and operations and strategic planning. That's where I spent my career. When I got involved with private equity, and now I'm a CEO running the business, I really didn't have a big background in manufacturing. Um, and so I was really interested in somebody that I could leverage and understand knowledge of manufacturing, learning, first time quality and process improvement, lean manufacturing. Those were things I didn't do in my background. So I was really hopeful to get a board member that could teach and be willing to answer the dumb question that I had around some of these items. Was the first one. And I also had one that had an unbelievable marketing and advertising background. Again, we were running a business that required a little bit more marketing savvy and advertising savvy. And why not leverage them then? Oh, just having certain skill sets on the board. Might as well take advantage of where we're a little shy inside the company and where I wasn't the strongest at the time.
So, for those listening, you've made that transition. You were an operator. We're going to dive into that. Before we do, you last role was operating partner, chairman. So talk to us about that transition, because it's not an easy one, from going from driving your own ship to influencing someone else's, in essence. How
It's
did you feel about that transition from CEO to operating partner slash chairman, board member, whatever you want to put a title on it? Talk to us about
it isn't easy. You're right. First of all, the guy on the or gal on the other side of the table from you that is the CEO really doesn't want you in his business because in this case, I wasn't invited in, I was put in by the private equity group. So for before, I would always want them on my team and we'd get them early in the investment. Here, there was a new CEO and he didn't have a good background in certain things. So they brought me in to help. And he fought it from the very beginning because he thought I was there to take his job or tell on him back to the PE group. And I would say to him, that's not the case at all. I'm going to ask you the most difficult questions 3, 4, 5 days in advance of a board meeting. I want to see the deck. I want to see the numbers. I'm going to ask you the hard questions. And when we get to the meeting, you're going to have all those answered and you're going to look like a hero. That's my job, is to make you, I don't want you to be embarrassed in the meeting. And the first meeting or two, he just didn't think that was the right thing to do. And they asked lots of questions, and I asked lots of questions. And finally, at the end of the meeting, he said to me, "Can we go through that process again? And can we set that up?" And I'm like, "Yeah," because the last thing you want is to be embarrassed in a meeting. And I'm just asking open, honest questions. I'm not trying to embarrass you. But if you're not prepared, and he was a first-time CEO, first-time private equity, if you're not prepared, you could look foolish. And so my job, I told him, was to prepare him for those kind of conversations and make sure that he looked the part and did all the right things. So when we got to meetings, he already had all the answers and I wouldn't have any questions. That was kind of my mantra with him. And it took a while to get established. But once we did, it made a lot more sense. And then I said, I want to work on your operations problems. He said, fine. I don't have a great operations background. I said, I will do that and I will work through you. I will get the list of operating issues. I will work through you. I will go to the visits. I'll send you everything. I want you to implement them. I'm not going to implement them for you. And then I got involved with marketing the same way. So the whole idea was, where was their weakness in the business, what needed to improve, and I spent my time working on those things and forcing change through the CEO. And at the end of the day, it was the right thing to do because he became my partner and I became his partner. And when we exited the business, he was very grateful. He did really well. And he was very grateful for the guidance. And it wasn't easy in the beginning. And I'm like, well, they never are, I don't think, unless you start with them, if you're there from day one. The transitions can be hard for CEOs if they feel uncomfortable with somebody trying to give them help. And say, I was completely the opposite. I wanted somebody that I could talk to.
Certainly, maybe it was that attitude that got you to where you are, and why we've achieved so many, or I wasn't involved, why you've achieved so many exits, but I'll make a little claim for it. So If we just look at some of those questions that we're asking, then let's, there's plenty of chief executives that listen here, and I'm sure there's plenty of private equity investors that are thinking, what on earth, Jeff, asking to these executives and preparing them before the board meeting, because the private equity investors are in there as well. They've hired this individual. They don't want that individual to look stupid nor make them look stupid. So what's some of those questions that I know everything doesn't apply to everything, but what's some of those questions that you're asking that get people prepared, and maybe a bit of context around it? And then what was the question?
So what I would do is I get the draft deck a couple days before it was due to be released, and I, as the CEO, I prepared over the course of a long time an awful lot of decks, trying to make sure that I've covered the things that were important, what was working, what wasn't working, and what were the action plans in place to get the things that weren't working moving in the right direction with timelines and deliverables, not just information. It was actionable information that you can hold people accountable for with names and dates. And so that was the most important thing that I implemented in that role, was because you would get in there and you would talk and people would talk, you talk in circles, and okay, when's it going to get fixed? What do you need? What's the resources that are required? And well, let me get back to you. Well, that's not the time to let me get back to you. You, as the CEO, you need to come in prepared with, if you need something, some services, some outside help. What's it for? How long do you need it? What's the impact going to be? What are the operating metrics to know that it's working or not working? How quickly is it going to change something in the business? You have to ask all those questions and have some sense of knowledge, and then hold you and your people accountable for delivering on those. Versus you get into a meeting and you go, well, I don't know, I'll have to get back to you. I'm not really too sure. When that happens 3 or 4 times in a meeting, you know that the team's not prepared. And the team needs to be prepared. The board meeting or the monthly update should be the team's meeting to update the private equity guys, and not the chance for the private equity guys to pick apart what you're doing. And if you give them everything that is necessary, it normally works pretty good. I mean, I had plenty of times where I'd send my decks out as the CEO to the PE firms. Me and the CFO would get on a call like this and would wait. And we had a 5-minute rule. If they didn't show up in 5 minutes, that means they liked what they saw and we could hang up. And that happened an awful lot of times because you're trying to give them enough information that they need. And they have problem children in other businesses that they need to spend their time on. So if my business is performing well, I give them the information that they need, and they could choose to sit with us or not. That to me was the most important thing, preempting their thinking and trying to get on paper at a high level all the things that you wanted to get accomplished and where you needed support, funding, help, and why. And when you did those things, the meetings went really smoother, and of course they held you accountable for all the things you talked about. But that's why you do this job.
So many questions on the back of that. What was some of the information that you'd put in that was above and beyond that prevented? We speak to execs, oh, private equity's down my neck and whatever else, and they're holding you accountable, as you put it. What were some of the things that you put in those deck packs and board packs that stopped them even joining the call at some point?
Well, when you have a plan, and if you're supposed to grow, I don't know, so let's say your quarterly growth rates are supposed to be 7 to 10%, and you've got a situation where you're getting on your quarterly packet and you're growing below that, or you're growing above it. We want to share the what, where, and whys so that they know, okay, we understand we're growing at 5%, we're behind. Here's the 3 things that have happened that is causing us to be behind, and these are the action plans we're doing to get us back on track, with timelines. And if we were up 15%, Now I'm trying to tamper them down so they don't think every quarter I'm going to be up 15%. I'd say, listen, we had one big sale this month, or we signed a new deal, and that's going to make us, instead of growing 7 or 8% a quarter over quarter, we're going to grow 8 or 9. But this quarter we grew 15, and here's the reasons why. So to set the expectations on, what are they expecting to see in the future and timing, because sometimes they'll get that and they'll think, oh, the business is performing so much better. And then their expectation is, even though your plan is 7 or 8% growth, their expectation changed to 15, and trying to set the right expectation for them. And what's driving it, good, bad, or indifferent. And I always would tell people, give me the bad news first, because if I can solve the problem, I can turn something that's bad into a positive. And how do I do that, right? Just don't gloss me over with, everything's great, because it's not always great. And the private equity guys, they're not operating guys, most of them. They're financial guys. And so they're looking at, driven by the numbers. And so they don't know if what your machine uptime or downtime is and how that drives revenue. It doesn't come across to them. So you have to educate them to understand what's driving the business in some direction. And if you're off track, when are you going to get back on track, and what's it going to take to get it back on track? And I think that you're more successful when you open the kimono and you share with them what's going on in your world. There's only one goal for management team and the PE firms. It's all the same. And so you got to make sure everybody's on the same page.
I love that. All about open, clear communication and going to them with the problem and the solution. Pretty simple stuff, but poorly executed by a lot of individuals.
Unfortunately, that is true. And sometimes, like we did one of these in the COVID period. I mean, nobody really knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
So you're trying to figure it out as you go. But you sure can't put your head under a rock and not think about it. You have to think about it, because they're thinking about it too. So you're just trying to let them know that you've thought this through, and here's the path here's the hill you're going to take. And at the end of the day, it might be the wrong hill, but you took the hill that you told them you're going to take.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sorry to interrupt, just a quick mention of our long-standing partnership with Grata. As you will probably know, the private equity scene is constantly evolving, and deal flow is moving now to proprietary and data-driven processes. Grata provides you with the data and information of over 7 million private companies. So if you're looking to improve your proprietary deal flow and improve the data access, then reach out to Grata today. Now back to the podcast.
So let's dive into your operator experience and operating as a chief exec. So it's going to put a bit of context around that for everybody listening, with regards to what Jeff's achieved, because it's nothing short of phenomenal. So firm called Hart and Cooley, backed by HIG, took that business to an exit, which we are going to dive into, because Jeff, his goal was a year, and he didn't achieve that goal. He achieved a year and a week, which I know devastated him, and no doubt HIG as well. Seneca Holdings, multiple private equity partners, multiple exits and add-on acquisitions as well, and then Chase Door as well, with again an exit and working with private equity with that one. So all in all, there's a lot of exits in there, 5+ with regards to your career and what you've done. So there's a lot we can learn from that. So what have you? Let's first dive into this. With Chase Doors to Seneca to Hart and Cooley. What was some of either the one big takeaway, the one big thing you learned from, because every scenario is different, every business is built differently. So what was the one big thing that you took that made you a better chief exec from each of those positions?
Well, the Seneca Holdings window of time. So, Seneca started with in 2008 with the Eliason. I was the CEO of Eliason. We sold Eliason to Chase Doors. Turned around and rebranded everything into Seneca Holdings, and then sold it multiple times. The probably the most important thing is trying to learn the people and all the add-ons and the acquisitions and being thoughtful on, what are you going to do with the facilities that you bought? How's it going to impact the people inside the facility? Where do you consolidate? How efficiently can you consolidate? What's the benefits by doing all this, and how are you going to handle the folks in the facilities that you're going to close or move work from? Um, that was always the hardest to think through, because it's not just a plus or a minus. It's a body at the end of the day who has to go home and talk to their family about what's going on at their job. And so that was probably the most difficult things to have to do. We bought a lot of companies during that window of time, closed a lot of locations and moved things around the country. Um, Started an office in Ireland. It's like, how do you do these things? So you do them with people, and you have to be open and honest with them on what you're trying to accomplish and why. We moved a lot of people from location to location. A lot of people don't want to move. They've got families. They don't want to come work part-time. It's probably the most difficult thing to do in any business, because businesses are about people. And how do you manage people and their expectations and treat them the right way? And when you treat them the right way, they want to work hard for you. And so that's probably the biggest takeaway I've gotten from anything that I've ever done is, making sure you are open and honest and communicative with all the employees, not just your direct team, so they know what you're trying to accomplish. Um, and they don't see it as a surprise. You didn't come in the morning and the building's locked and everything's gone. That's the wrong way to do it. It hurts no matter how you do it. But I think you have to treat people the right way.
Like that. And so you achieved, so we'll focus on Seneca a little bit. You exited that business as Seneca 3 times. I know Chase was rolled into it, Alliance, as you mentioned, but that
Right.
was 3 times, 3 different private equity firms. That's quite rare.
Four. Yeah, four
Four
different
different
private equity firms, 3 exits, 4 different private equity firms. Yes.
That's
It
quite
is
rare.
rare. And quite strange, to be honest with you. But it's one of those things where you put the game plan together, you start executing against the game plan. And our goal the whole time, and when this all started, was to look at the competition and put a plan together to exit against the competition, take work from them, irritate their customer base, irritate their management team, so they would want to buy us. And once we got to the point where Elias and Chase were merged, then it was a matter of, okay, how do we go out and acquire in the door space other door companies? So when you walked into a supermarket chain or a industrial building, I could supply every commercial door in that space. And that was the strategy. Um, and so our goal was to find all the right doors. So when you walk into a supermarket, there's a lot of doors. And so I would buy companies that I could then go and be what I called a one throat to choke strategy when I would talk to the buyer. You buy all your doors from me that you need in your building or in an Amazon facility. We provide you all the doors. You don't have to talk to anybody else. We'll get every door for you, because we either make them or we would contract with somebody and they would do the installation and they would do the service. And so we went about this strategy of what are the doors to acquire that make the most sense. So when you walk into an airport, we do an awful lot of doors inside an airport. We do all the airport hangar doors. We probably did 30% around the globe of airport hangar doors. We did probably another 30% around the globe of emergency response doors. And a lot of them were at airports. We did a lot of doors inside airports. We did, the emergency response doors in fire stations and ambulance, medical facilities. But you know, our goal was to try to find product that we could take them all of the doors that they would need, so that when they were doing an RFP or they were having a problem, they had one person that they called instead of having the, well, we're doing an RFP for a building and we need to get, five different door styles quoted. No, no, I can do it all for you. I'll get every door you need, and I can provide them to you. And that was the strategy. And the reason we acquired all the door companies that we did over the course of that time was we wanted to be your door provider of specialty doors. And so we focused on the commercial application and the industrial application, hard areas, things that get beat up an awful lot. Stayed away from residential and office buildings, just because, quite frankly, an office building door doesn't get beat up that often. But if you're in a warehouse, those doors get pounded all day long, or a cooler or freezer application, or great in the supermarkets. I'd walk the supermarkets and the reach-in glass doors, you have to have them working or they get fogged up and people can't see what's behind the display to buy. So when I'd walk the stores and I'd see glass doors that were foggy, I'm like, okay, that means they're going to have to replace that, and they need to replace it now. And I can give them that door tomorrow. So that was our strategy, was to provide a one-stop shop for doors in certain spaces, and it worked out extremely well. We grew that business from really nothing to a major player in the space. I don't know. It's like when we sold the last time, it's 275 million, I think, of revenue. And when we started, it was probably 20 in revenue. And so we did a lot of add-ons. We had to do plant consolidations, and there's just a lot that has to go on when you're acquiring a lot of companies. But we did an awful lot of add-ons.
Impressive. So, I mean, there's so many questions, Jeff. We could do about 5 podcasts here, but just looking at that retention, a bit of inner reflection potentially is probably not the easiest question to ask, but what made you sticky as a chief exec that stopped them replacing you out with someone they knew as an exec, or they wanted to bring in their own team? What was it that made you sticky?
Well, I had a plan, and we were executing against that plan, and we were over delivering every time we went to market. Every time we went into the management meetings, my team and I thought, did a great job presenting, and we had over delivered all of our business plans. I think that's probably the biggest reason that they kept everybody. I never changed. I changed my CFO because he retired. But we kept everybody through the process because they were good people. They were delivering against the plan. And it wasn't until the fourth sale where I was tired of working in the commercial door space, and told the PE group through the process that when we finished the sale, I'd be happy to stay on and transition for the new CEO and hire them and keep them moving. But I'd rather roll into more of an acquisition chairman style role where I can mentor the CEO for a year or so. Because what happens when you're there that long, you become a fixture in the business, and you don't want people calling you. You want people calling the new leader with issues and problems, and that's hard after you've been there for so many years, and everybody thinks of you as the leader of that business. And oh yeah, you're a board member, but you're still there, and they still think that they can come to you with questions and issues, and you're like, no, that's not my job anymore. It's for the new CEO. So I think it's performance that allows you to stay. I think that's the biggest part of it. I also think that if you have the plan in place and you are able to execute against the plan and you want to execute the plan, I think there's a higher probability that they're willing to keep you. but they have to buy into the plan. If I've looked at a number of businesses and you don't have a plan, then our plan is to replace you as the CEO because you don't have a plan. You're just selling your business, which is okay. Um, but if you don't have a plan, then we're going to generate the plan, and we got to bring somebody in that can execute the plan.
Not only am I the host of the Private Equity Podcast, but I'm also the founder and managing partner of Raw Selection. Raw Selection is a private equity specialist executive search firm with two divisions, one that focuses on portfolio, C-suite executive hires, and one that focuses on private equity direct hires of your back office and investment deal professionals, operating across Europe and North America. A unique offering of our service is that we offer a full money-back guarantee on all upfront deposits. We typically take around $10,000 US as an upfront deposit to commence the search process. The remainder is then on completion, but that upfront deposit is completely refundable. If you're not happy with our service, we will refund that upfront deposit, no questions asked.
How much do you think, you referenced your desire to bring in what you do now when you're a CEO. How much do you think your desire to learn, what do you think of an impact that's had with regards to your career?
Oh, I think it's tremendous. I would tell people I'm the dumbest guy in the room, fastest learner, but the dumbest guy in the room, because you put your best people around you with unbelievable experience in their functional area. They know more about that functional area than you do. If I think I know more about them in a functional area, I'm wrong. I just don't. But I listen, I learn quickly, and I want people to know that that's their area of expertise. And I'm going to support you. I'm going to ask lots of questions, and we're going to move the business forward together. But I didn't bring you on here with your area of expertise to tell you how to do it. I wouldn't need you if that was the case. But people with functional knowledge, they're worth a tremendous amount. And you got to give them room to run. And you have to give them enough room that if they make a mistake, it's not going to bankrupt you. And that's what I would tell them. We'll give you a lot of room to run. You're going to make lots of mistakes along the way, but it's not going to hurt us financially. We're not going to let you do anything that's going to hurt us financially. But we're going to give you a lot of room to run. And I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people stayed during all the transitions, is because we gave them lots of room to run.
Appreciate it. So let's jump into Hart and Cooley, your last role as a chief exec. Your biggest failure in your career, missing out by that 1 week. So that still keeps you up at night. 5-year timelines, 3 to 5 years, ends up being 6 or 7 sometimes. Year and a week, that was your goal when you went in, from what you shared with me previously. So
yeah, definitely was not the goal.
What happened? Give us the secret sauce, Jeff.
So I was retired and, looking for my next opportunity. And I got a call from the HIG folks about this potential. It was in the market. It was a carve out from a publicly traded company, which I'd never done before. So that interests me highly, because I knew I was going to have to build everything from the ground up. I'd have plants and I'd have manufacturing, but we would have to build all the back office features and functions. Never had really done that from the ground up. So I was very excited about that. Had a CFO who'd been with me before, got him engaged 3 months before close with me, which was really helpful because he was an operating CFO, so he knew how to build things and he could run. He could take on, payroll, and he could take on accounts payable, AP, all this stuff. We need people, right? I didn't have to think about it, which was good. And then it was during COVID, so all the other bidders during the process kind of got squirmish during COVID, and the HIG guys stood firm. And we knew we could really do a lot with this business. So when you're buying a carve out, they're normally selling them at a pretty reasonable price. We knew we could do a lot with it. It was a great great old name, Hart and Cooley. Everybody knew it in the HVAC space. And when you looked at the business, it was poorly managed. It just was an orphan child within a publicly traded company. So it's not that people purposely mismanaged it or didn't manage it. It's just it was a small piece of a multi-billion-dollar company. So it was easy to fix, quite frankly. You go in, you build the team up around it. I mean, we hired a great HR person, so he went out and he and the CFO they were able to put departments together relatively quickly. Um, we had to get off of the parent company systems within 9 months. I had a great IT guy that worked really hard to make that happen and do a great job getting off the IT systems. Um, Early on, we realized we're an HVAC business, but we had a ductwork company that did flexible ductwork in the ceilings. No margin, so I sold it within the first couple months because it wasn't core to what I wanted to do. And then we went, working on executing against the strategy. The good news was we were in retail, we were in a new construction, we were in wholesale, we were in a lot of different places in commercial buildings. So there's a lot of opportunities to kind of grow. It was during COVID, it was during steel issues, and you know could we get materials to make product, and we end up managing price really well and having a strong program with the steel vendors to get our prices delayed, if you will, from them so that we didn't take it in the shorts day one. It was always a 30-day window. We could take advantage of price, which we did during that window of time. We managed it like it was our personal pocketbook when it came to price, and in pushing price increases out on as frequent as we could to get through that. And we were, I don't know, I want to say 6 or 7 months into the integration, standing up the business, getting off the parent company systems. And we got a call from one of the private equity groups from the Netherlands that looked at the business before when they were in the COVID stage, and they couldn't come to the US, and they were very interested in buying us. And the guy from HIG and I told him, okay, if that's what you want to do, we're always willing sellers. That's what you learn in private equity. We're always a willing buyer, we're always a willing seller. Um, Here's the price point that it's going to take, and here's when we'll sell it to you: 1 year and 1 week, so we get long-term capital gains. And that's what had to happen. And I had a plan. I think I said earlier, I'm one for planning. So I had a plan, a detailed plan, and they said to me, "Would you share us your detailed plan?" I said, "Sure." And I said, "If you don't deliver on your plan, they built their structure around, if you don't deliver on your plan, we would pay less." I said, "That's fine. If we over deliver, you'll pay more." And they were like, "Okay." And of course, we over delivered. And they bought the business. We had a structure in place. The HIG guys were kind of shocked that I would want to sell, within the first year. But at the end of the day, you look at a business and you think, what else more are we going to do? We could buy, we could grow, we could buy them. But you're going to get a great return. And that's what this is about for the private equity guys is getting a great return on capital. And I said, the return you're going to get, it's going to be fantastic. I think we got them a little over 5.25 times cash on cash in a year. So we might get that in 3 years. It'll be a bigger business, be a bigger number, but we might get that in 3 years. We might not. We might get 3 times in 3 years. So you have the opportunity right now. People are really interested. We're moving in the right direction. It's a great business. Well, let's let them pay for it. And so they did. And it was a good finish. It was a really good exit. For me, the most important thing is I still talk to the chief operating officer over there, and all the people that we had are still there working, which is good. So it's not like, somebody came in and wiped it out. And they're doing really well. The consolidation with the other company has worked out really well for everybody. And that's the most important thing, quite frankly, is that these businesses continue to improve, and whoever the next steward is of them continues down that same path.
Sounds like a lot of planning and a lot of the right people. Again, a simple strategy, but when executed well, it's obviously worked pretty well in your career.
It has, and people, you're right. People are the most important thing. And do you make every hire a great hire? Nope. But you have to realize that, give them a chance. You have to realize that, and then you have to realize they could be successful somewhere else, and you got to replace them. It's hard to do, but it's the right thing for the business at times. And that's what you tell them. We want you to make you successful somewhere else because you're not going to be successful here. And it's hard. You want to treat them with dignity because if it happened to you, you sure want to be treated with respect and dignity.
We could go on and I could ask you a million questions, Jeff. We could pull a huge amount of value, but I think that gives us a good starting point. But what do you, Sam, obviously a lifelong learner, what are your influences? What do you read? What do you watch? What do you listen to that you recommend that others check out?
That's interesting. I don't spend any time um, reading business books anymore. I've taken the time to just read like goofy stuff, like I read Matthew McConaughey's memoir, which was really goofy. It was very strange, but you try to understand where you've been and what you've gone through. And I read his and I'm like, man, that is really weird. Um, I'm trying to do other things that I don't spend a lot of time doing in the past, because when you're running these businesses, you're really, really engaged. So, now that I'm on the beach for a while, my wife and I have been traveling quite a bit. We went to London for the Wimbledon experience to see tennis and learn our way around London, which was fantastic. Um, she's learning another language so we can spend more time in France and try to understand the French culture. But it's just one of those things when you're in private equity, and she would tell you this, you're working 60, 70-hour weeks sometimes, and you don't really have a lot of extracurriculars. So, you want to come home and spend time with your family and the kids and watch them grow and hopefully give them some support and guidance as they grow. But you're all entrenched in what's going on in your business. I mean, I think that's what makes successful folks in the private equity space. And you don't, a lot of times I didn't live in the town that the business was in. So I didn't move. So we would be there, 7 a.m. in the morning and order lunch and order dinner and be out of there really late. And everybody, it wasn't a life for everybody, but it was what you did because you were working in some faraway town. And what am I going to do? Go sit back in the hotel room, right? So let's put more effort into moving this business and solving it for the people that lived like me. Not everybody did. A lot of people lived in the town. We'd kick them out of the building at 5:30, 6 o'clock to go home and spend time with their families, but we didn't have that luxury. We would come in and we'd work. So, I didn't end up with a ton of stuff that I like to do. I do like to golf, but I'm not very good. I think I'm probably worse than most humans, but it's good to get out.
Perfect. And if anybody wishes to reach out to you, Jeff, how best do they get in touch, please?
So the easiest way to get a hold of me is through my email. It's Jeffrey, Jeffrey, G as in George, Stark, Stark @gmail. is the easiest way to go hold of me. Because unfortunately I still have that phone glued to my hip every day. I haven't gotten rid of that yet. It's funny, my wife keeps saying, I thought you were going to get rid of your smartphone when you retire and you were going to just get a flip phone. So I did say that, but I haven't been able to do that yet. And still too much connected to what's going on in the world.
Still tethered to. Well, Jeff, thank you very much for coming on. You've had a phenomenal career, and that's not over yet, I don't think, but that's loads and loads of experience, loads and loads of value. There's so much we could dive into with so many exits, so much revenue growth, so many acquisitions, and everything else that's happened in between, prior and before all of that. So thank you very much for coming onto the podcast. Thank you very much for sharing your insights and giving us all a significant amount of value jumping in here. So thank you.
Well, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. Enjoy your day.
And for everybody listening, thank you very much for tuning in yet again to the Private Equity Podcast. Until next time, keep smashing it, and thank you very much for listening.